Здравствуйте, уважаемые участники нашего круглого стола.
Good afternoon, distinguished participants of our roundtable. Allow me to get started. It is the second roundtable in the series of roundtables. And today's topic is: what are the tools required for the safe borrowing at times of post-COVID pandemic? I'll be the moderator of today. And before I introduce our speakers, let me give you some technical info for your comfort. So our event is bilingual. We have a simultaneous interpretation. If you want to listen to the English speech, please select the icon and choose the English language. The presentation in English is available using the link in the chat box. So you can use the chat box and you will see a message from us. You can download the presentation in English. The presentations of the speakers will be in Russian. And of course, we wait for your answers, actually questions, as the speakers will be presenting. And at the end of all the presentations, we will give you the answers. So please use the chat box to submit your questions. So I'm glad to introduce our distinguished speakers: Nadira Mansurova, the region head of the SME Development Department of EBRD for Kazakhstan and Mongolia, and Dr. Joachim Bald, a recognized expert in treasury and risk management. Nadira, please, the floor is yours for the welcome speech. Thank you so much. For me, it is the great honor to open today's event. Dear participants, I'm very glad that you are here at our second round table on women in business support. It is a very important event where colleagues will share their experience on how to support women in business in such a challenging times. So allow me to extend my thanks to our main partner, the government of Kazakhstan, for their continuous support they've given us in this program in particular, that is support to women in businesses. And I want to extend great appreciation to the banks and financial institutions such as Damo Fund, Regional Business Association, for our close cooperation and collaboration that actually makes our program and all the events successful. I'm also thankful to the Frankfurt School of Business for this multi-year cooperation that we have in many areas of this program. Financial institutions are the main partners for us in this mechanism because they can create the opportunities and play the key role in supporting women in business in Kazakhstan. Why is this important? Because the access to funding is still limited, and there are barriers that arise on the way of women to their businesses, and they have become even worse at times of COVID. These obstacles exist not only in Kazakhstan, but also in other countries, and I'm glad that Kazakhstan has been putting efforts to remove those barriers. And at EBRD, we believe in huge capacity of women in businesses, not only for the development for the economy, but also for the creation of new job places, which is a priority of all the countries. And together with our partners, we offer the funding and borrowing services that is supported through the consulting too. And we believe that funding and consulting create the opportunities for women in businesses so that they reach their next level faster. And we are here assisted by our partners and consulting companies with whom we have maintained cooperation for many years now. We take pride in this program. It is supported by the government, as I was mentioned. Thanks to this program, over 22,000 loans were extended to female businesses worth 41 billion tenge. It is, I believe, it is really good amount of money. And thanks to our consulting projects, we were able to support around 4,000 enterprises led by women. As I mentioned, the effect of coronavirus affected across the globe women in businesses. SME sector has suffered as such, but actually women suffered even greater. So the turnover dropped, the job places were closed, some businesses also closed. And some actually companies were more resilient in refocusing their strategy in finding new survival options. Some of them reviewed their business models, and it was really illustrative for us that these women in businesses may play an important role in the economy. And of course, because of pandemic, there was the package of solidarity, as it was called, to address the immediate needs of the businesses and to help the economy find the way out of this crisis. And there was the support given to SMEs and other sectors of economy. I think that we shall all agree that working with women in businesses continues to be a priority for us, for all our partners, and we shall continue using the existing tools of support and also thinking of some other options that we may offer. Today, we discuss what has worked, what was good in different situations, what international best practice can be brought to Kazakhstan, and what methods and practices can be applied to collectively overcome the crisis. Today, we will analyze how to improve our tools, the credit analysis tools, in order to tackle this great effect of pandemic and support women in businesses even more. I want to thank all our partners, all our donors, and all the participants for having joined our round table. I wish all of you successful discussion and really good positive mood, because without it would be difficult for us to move on. Thank you so much, and best of luck to you all. Nadira, thank you so very much for your warm welcome remarks and the review of a Women in Businesses program. Before I give the floor to Dr. Joachim Bald, I want to remind you that in the chat box, you may find the link to the presentation in English. Should you have any questions, please use the answers and questions box, and you can submit your question there. And after the Dr. Bolt's presentation, we will voice them all. And it is my great pleasure to give the floor to Dr. Joachim Bald. Hello. Good afternoon. I'm very pleased to present to you today. I'm specialized in credit risks, and I don't think it's something fearful. I've already seen a great number of overdue credits today. It is my Russian presentation, and that's a bit fearful. As you may know, I'm the member of the board of directors of KMF, but I did not coordinate the content of this presentation with KMF. I'm not going to disclose any commercial secrets here. I'm really proud of KMF's achievements, especially during the crisis, but my contribution is not that high there. It is just as a point of clarity. So what's on our agenda? And here are 4 bullet points. First is the hypothesis. Maybe the crisis is over. And of course, it would make it a lot easier to extend the loans. Second, we will review the current statistics of OMF and the 2021 results. So it is actually better than expected, but the crisis is uneven and may seem unfair. And third bullet point, it is the effect of coronavirus on SMEs as well as the financial sector of Kazakhstan. And I'll talk about crisis. What kind of crisis is there? And then the credit risks of SME in post-COVID realities that will actually generate the need to assess the borrowing capacity. As for Kazakhstan, it could have been worse. But Kazakhstan actually coped with the crisis a lot better than other markets of Central Asia and across the globe. Are we ready for the credit market boom? Actually, the crisis will once over. But let's study what we can learn for the next time. So here we have the World Economic Forum data. And we can see that the growth rebound is slightly better than expected, but it's not yet over. In 2020, the global growth was minus 3.3% and is projected at plus 6% currently. After 2021, the global growth is expected at the level of 4.4% for the medium term. Nevertheless, the prospective growth will not compensate for the previous growth until 2025.
Here you can see that the recession in Kazakhstan last year was much weaker than in neighboring countries, specifically versus Georgia or Kyrgyzstan. Collapse of the international tourism, of course, plays a big role in this, but lower remittances from labor migrants had a negative impact, for example, on Kyrgyzstan. Kazakhstan was quite lucky. Some year ago, that was a disaster. So oil prices, tenge devaluation, but the government of Kazakhstan responded in a flexible way, thus stabilized economy with the help of the budget policy. An interesting item within the framework of economic data. Internationalization of SME is a big topic for EBRD. And of course, regrettably, international trade was losing volumes even prior to COVID-19. But the recent figures just show that international trade becomes a factor for development, for growth, and this gives us hope. Average growth, global growth, just does not show too much, and the consequences of crisis are quite uneven and unfair. So the previous crisis in the field of services just demonstrated lower recession than in the industry, but the current crisis shows quite different picture. So we can just see the tourism, entertainment sector, services sector, so which shows a big drop. So this is as a consequence of lockdowns, of social distances, of changing behaviors. But why is it so unfair? Economic distress following COVID-19 is not only uneven by sectors and geographically, but it is unfair in terms of levels of income, education, and within one and the same sector and within one and the same country. So the graph on the left-hand side shows the situation in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan, in reality, is lucky. So energy, production of grain and meat was developing, and the industries were recovering quite fast all over the world, and you can see on the right-hand side. But another sign of the fact that the crisis is so uneven and unfair. The left-hand side graph shows that the remote work, this is not only a matter of country development, but a matter of income, a matter of wages. For example, a manager who just earns like tenfold salary than a worker can work with, well, from his country house. But on the right-hand side, on the graph, you can see that unemployment mainly just falls to three categories: women, young people, and less qualified people, people with lower skills. In October, IMF forecasted a lot of just job losses and bankruptcies, specifically in SMEs, in restaurants, wholesale and retail, so other services due to lockdown measures. But until now, so far, so we haven't seen a big wave of bankruptcies. On the left-hand side, the blue line shows, blue curve shows that during this crisis, number of bankruptcies actually reduced. However, so this may be explained mainly by the legal aid and governmental support. Corporate livelihoods, for example, within the EU, reduced the employment level. You can see it on the right-hand side diagram. But it may be just a new generation of new zombie enterprises, which would get the livelihood and support from the government. But the number of bankruptcies is much less than expected, and this just is shown in Moody's studies surveys. They show that the same is true for large companies. So default rate increased by twice, but this is much less than during big crisis, which occurred 10 years ago. Here you can see several facts from GCAP from December. You can see that the financial services providers are quite resilient because micro entrepreneurs are resilient. They have to keep just their business, just to earn for their livelihoods. And MSMEs portfolios are quite well granular and diversified. And so the banks that provide services to MSMEs are generally well capitalized with the total capital adequacy in over 15%. And therefore, many can absorb a stress loss of 10 to 15% of the portfolio over 2 years. And thanks to the governmental support, guarantee programs, rollovers of the banks such as EBRD, liquidity did not become a major constraint among MSME financial providers. And this is true for the whole globe. But there are some negative issues in CCAP reviews service. We can see approximately 10% of overdue credit portfolios, and this also relates to Central Asia. You can see it on the left-hand side. And probably we have not seen the end of major macroeconomic effects like major corporate defaults, governmental spending, further shrinkage of remittances. So it's all possible in the future, actually. And probably, so there is a fear that with the new loans, with the new credit, so it may be just quite have a negative effect, specifically in view of economic crisis. And we know that customer financing and MSMEs finance are just associated with reputational and behavioral effects, because MSME is quite it may be just a target for populist interventions, for local currency denominated in local currencies, specifically for those which were borrowed in foreign currencies, subsidizing. So everything is quite possible, and interest subsidies and loan write-off programs, of course, it all just has an effect on MSME finance. But how MSME finance providers are coping with this? We can observe such scenarios that at the very beginning of, starting from March through December 2020, new disbursements slowed down. And so mainly we're just focused on repeat clients. Then there was accelerated drawdown on existing funding lines in order to maintain liquidity. Of course, dividends were canceled. Nobody paid dividends. And there was an active communication, proactive communication with regulators, with funders, with partners, with stakeholders, in order to just maintain access to finance and to proactively explain the situation. And so we're coming to typical scenarios that approximately 50% of credits were under moratorium, and shift from this 60% just goes for write-offs, maybe for like some digitals, but this is of course a drastic result. But as far as capital adequacy is concerned, the majority of the banks and financial institutions can absorb, are able to absorb this kind of shock. Just quite an interesting item here. MSME finance recommendations, IFRS recommendations, and BIS recommendations were not quite obvious. So many understood it like, you can do whatever you want, just you can show losses from provisions. But one should not follow automatically those recommendations. But we're quite just impressed that IFRS 9 implementation, specifically in Kazakhstan, are followed, are observed quite strictly. So there are no games around that. We could not see such kind of games around those recommendations. As far as financial market in Kazakhstan, we can say crisis. What crisis? So ATF, Kaspi Bank, Home Credit Bank. So these customer banks are just growing fastly even during the crisis. And they actively penetrate MSMEs market. And we can observe that many borrowings, parallel loans, just get more penetration and spread. One cannot just find a person who could not have just a credit from Kaspi Bank. If you look at the right-hand side, you can see that new creditors in MFO segment are growing fastly. So therefore, overdue loans presents the major risk, because a lot of parallel credits and quite actively new customer loans are repaid, specifically in this segment of crediting. Even in rural areas, there are a lot of like commodity credits from Kaspi Bank, issued by Kaspi Bank or Home Credit Bank, etc.
So now I should like to dwell on the credit scoring. The goal is always to identify the probability of a default. So during quarantine, the restructuring in the second or third quarter of 2020 was the period of hot crisis, and it may be even excluded from the period to be evaluated. We, however, shall be concerned about the midterm implications of the coronavirus, because it will have an effect after the quarantine and will affect the borrowing climate. The recession will still be observed in some of the sectors. The customer behavior will still be changing, so it will remain even a year after the crisis. And we would need some time adjustment that will filter sustainable business models at times of COVID. And such credits will be evaluated against the standard model plus the COVID effect, or we may put it COVID overlay. So there are two models, the standard model at the start and the time component to better filter negative implications of coronavirus. And after this period overlay, we shall get back to the standard model maybe in 2022. And the standard model will also reflect on the long-term implications and changes that the COVID would bring. And also the customer behavior during the hot phase of the crisis shall not be considered that much, even though it will have some effect and it will be taken into consideration in the standard scoring and will be reviewed on a regular basis. What are the key factors in this overlay model? There are some 4 or 5 principal factors, and the first will be the granular activity classifications. The COVID-19 effect is very uneven by sector, and it is especially true of personal services, transport, tourism, cultural events, arts. So they continue to be all high risk. The second factor is business location and target market. And we should expect large or extensive locational differences that come through the main source of underlying activity. So if, let's say, we would have some budget effect on a particular sector, then it will affect all SMEs in that sector. If, let's say, we have a big mine, then it will be the source of a primary welfare, and it will also affect SMEs. And third factor here is the financial situation or financial strength, liquidity, cap, and leverage. All these indicators play an important role, and it is very important to identify whether there is some balance it has or it is pushed to the limits. And there is another component to be added to current model. So these are the consumers that get salaries. So they're doing okay. However, they can be affected by government budget shortfalls and the delayed effect of employer bankruptcies. And here I mean large employers. So we haven't seen such bankruptcies coming true because the crisis is not over yet. And we may see some hope that the crisis is over yet, but we usually, at the end of a crisis, see some large bankruptcies. That's what global experience shows. As for Kazakhstan, I'm not that confident. We might simply be lucky and we keep on going. However, such the effect can be observed in many markets. And the employers' bankruptcies can be an indicator at the end of a crisis cycle. And the data related to banks or MFOs can be taken from corporate databases, but there are some market-based external data sources that could help us calibrate the expert assumptions. And this time component added to the model can be seen as the expert view. However, it can later be seen in the statistical data. With some of the colleagues from other countries, we actually are ready to review some data and to calibrate them statistically. And such indicators as like GDP by sector, it will also be useful to review some hot data where there may be any trials or corporate defaults, and these data would enrich the picture or the basis for the local data or internal data calibration. And we shall not forget about the credit bureaus that are very important source that shows the general trends on the markets. So these are the main conclusions. We might have been lucky. So this overlay, COVID overlay, might be over in Kazakhstan, and there is no need for COVID overlay score. Can we put it this way? So if the business kept good cash flows during the pandemic and the business has survived from last year till today, and the business has proven to be sustainable, then the loan can be extended as the most challenging time has gone and the cash flow was there. So it may indicate that that particular business model is functional, even during the most challenging. We believe that we just can go with the flow. And this flow actually take all the boats up. So it is important that you still have that boat, you still have the business. However, we are still concerned about corporate bankruptcies and their effect on the unemployment rate. So we might have not seen it all. And second, we are concerned about over indebtedness and zombie restructurings that are coming due. So it's when the restructuring has been done, like first time, second time, and finally business would not be able to cope. But generally, I'm pretty confident that Kazakhstan now has really good time to invest in women-led or women-owned businesses. And with that, I want to wrap up my small presentation, my short presentation, and I'm happy to answer the questions. Thank you, Dr. Bald, for such an optimistic review of what happened to Kazakhstan. And it is really important that banks were able to minimize the implications of the pandemic. And we have some questions. So let's start. So the following questions. What is the role of the guarantees offered by such funds as DAMU or the risk allocation mechanisms that EBRD Women in Business offered during the times of COVID? Can I answer it right away? Yes, of course. So DAMU has a twofold role to play. They've already contributed a lot to the economic stabilization, and they preserved the access to funding by DAMU and MFOs. So it's not the end of the world, and the work still goes on. And such mechanisms, such guarantees play a big role globally. Such companies that would give guarantees are now opening for small and medium businesses across the world. In many countries, they still exist, and they may increase the scope or the volume that they would secure during the times of crisis. We hope that this will continue after the crisis. So it will be, the guarantee programs will be accessible to more businesses, and oftentimes they are seen as alternative collateral. And they sort of replacing the traditional collateral. And it is their big role that they actually ensure the access to funding. Thank you. Very good questions. Thank you so much. And so we have the next question. What measures shall be taken for the National Bank of Kazakhstan for more effective management of the growing ratio of NPLs during and after the pandemic?
Basically, so that was actually provided before the crisis. So it was a big restructuring of the bank sector in Kazakhstan. And the purpose is always to strengthen bank's capital. And there were measures taken in terms of capital adequacy among the banks. And in that regard, there were no bankruptcies or defaults among the banks followed by as a result of bank liquidity or inadequacy. And the sector was ready, and that is a good result, of course. And of course, the central bank should follow the development policy just to ensure availability of the buffers, and they can play big role in spite of payments of dividends. But as the sector was already just targeted, so maybe there is no need for further measures. But of course, regulators should always be on alert, just monitoring the situation. But in Kazakhstan, the banking sector was ready, was prepared, and the crisis was to a lesser extent than expected. And that Kazakhstan was quite lucky in this regard. Great. Can you just specify what games with provisions you were just talking about when you were talking about IFRS 9? You all know that traditionally provisions. So this is this is just a factor that can be just played, and it can be just increased or decreased, whatever is convenient. IFRS 9 was just recommended, thus setting less flexibility. Maybe it was much tougher, and therefore just crediting environment should be followed, like macro-orderly, macroeconomic situation. So one should look ahead. Everything was quite great, and the crisis came, and even regulators were quite afraid that IFRS, so it could be just not quite useful if the banks just increase their provisions by 3 times, and so the IFRS committee and BIS, so they just issued the recommendations that one should not mechanically just respond or automatically respond. So, but this should be maybe a secondary stage because in IFRS 9, so if the risk is increasing, then one just finds himself or herself in the second stage. Therefore, provisions increase fastly. And they said that one should not follow this automatically. And in Kazakhstan, so the response was quite correct. But I could see in other countries, so people just said, okay, so we will just follow so we will do that whatever we want, so as we like. So it's not convenient to increase provisions right now. It's quite difficult to compare annual statements with other banks in other countries. But as far as I was quite impressed by the correctness of and appropriateness of provisions made in the banks and MFOs that I know in Kazakhstan. One should not just be concerned about this. Great, so there are 2 more questions. And the first one is, we know that women entrepreneurs are affected more from COVID, as they are mostly operating in the services and trade sectors, and they're responsible for childcare and their housework. This can damage the repayment performance of women as compared to men. And this can be just reflected in assessment tools. How can we ensure that financial institutions will continue lending to women despite of all these challenges? In our practice of MSME finance, we all knew that this is quite true. So the major responsibility rests on women, but they are quite successful in this, even during crisis times. And once again, Kazakhstani women just proved that they do not just, they're not just great and wise entrepreneurs, but at the same time, they can manage all challenges and keep them under control. Of course, there are those who are just operating in the sectors that are affected or suffered, and to repay loan. As far as repayment of loans are concerned, so there may be just a lot of losses, a lot of just bad loans, but there are big numbers of businesses that overcome that. And now there is a wave of growth which will help everyone to recover their businesses. And based on that, I can say that the crisis is close to its end, and now there is a new wave, and everybody will get benefits, and it's the best time, just to provide loans to women. Oh, great. And the last question sounds like this. Taking into consideration the role of digitalization in post-COVID period, do you think that digital transformation efforts of SMEs should be included into the credit assessment tools? And SMEs with investments into digital channels or digital products and services should be treated in a more favorable manner in scoring systems? Yes, 100%, absolutely. I just forgot to mention that when we are talking, when we are saying that small and medium businesses just responded in a flexible and sustainable way, how they did it? Because they shifted to digitalization, they found some other way, they just worked in a remote way, like ourselves. They found such an approach and deployed it. And we have to acknowledge that it's much more difficult for businesses, for real businesses, than for banks, because in our operations, so everything is virtual quite. But for those who just get the new ideas and new ways, so for them, digitalization is much more difficult. But those who just overcome the crisis, they included an element of remote work and digitalization. And of course, this is one of the major issues which are on the list of the scoring assessment, and how you just, how one responded to the challenges. Thank you very much, Dr. Bald. And at this, we just exhausted all, with this, we exhausted all the questions. And once again, I would like to thank you for your presentation, for quite detailed answers to the questions of our participants. This is a big honor for me. Thank you very much. Thank you. Distinguished participants, before we pass over to just wrapping up our roundtable discussion, let me just communicate to you that the next roundtable will take place in May. And at the end of our event, we expect you just to answer the questions of the survey, and and please select the option which you prefer in the poll provided below. Now I'm passing over to summing up our round table discussion. Thanks to the presentation by Dr. Bald, we can say that Kazakhstan just overcome the crisis much better than the other markets. The projections are quite positive, but still we have to learn the lessons and to reduce the disastrous consequences of the pandemic. So the impact of COVID-19 on SMEs have both positive and negative sides. Financial institutions developed a sustainable basis to overcome the consequences of an economic crisis, and overdue indebtedness of the excessive indebtedness of clients is the major factors of SME finance under conditions of the increasing competitiveness at the financial markets. So there are factors that define the credit ability through the prism of COVID-19, and Dr. Bald just offers 5 options for sustainability assessment that just form the credibility assessment through COVID-19. Financial institutions may use them as an additional tool Today is the best time to invest into entrepreneurs led by women or owned by women. Okay. With this, I suggest that we wrap up our event. You can see the poll here on your screens, and we would gladly receive your answers. We have a feedback. Thank you very much for EBRD and Dr. Bald for this excellent and presentation and very informative event. So this is from Raina Fitz. Thank you, Raina, to you for you to have attended our event. And thank you for your feedback, of course. Okay, so the poll is over. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Bald, Nadira. Thank you, distinguished participants. We hope just to see you in May. Next time, we will be glad to see all of you. And goodbye.